We made it through the offseason, everyone. Ole Miss answered some major questions at the mock game on Saturday. Seriously.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member. On today's show, we will start with the final scrimmage in fall camp, the mock game, and what we learned talking to sources and digging into the rumors from Saturday. We'll also take a closer look at the offensive line and the real clues that we got about what the starting five could look like against the Georgia State Panthers. And as we do every Monday, we'll run through the week one SEC lines, talk upset alerts, figure out which teams are poised to show out in their season opener. We'll explain all of that and more right now on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We are free and available on all the podcast channels and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. And a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is, and that is the most fun way to follow Ole Miss sports. So do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment on the video. Heck, subscribe to the podcast on the audio podcatcher that you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs nothing and keeps everything absolutely free here. If you want more, join the Insiders program on the Subtext link down below. No trolls, 14-day free trial, and the easiest way to cancel out of everything. So give that a try. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. And coming up on Ole Miss Trivia, the clue again, Ole Miss season openers. You detecting a theme yet? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. All right. So the mock game wrapped up on Saturday, and I talked to all of my guys, and they're talking about performances and how people look. First of all, the main takeaway from the defensive side of the ball is that everybody apparently was out there. And they're completely healthy. They're ready to go, and the back end of that defense is making plays and doing what they're supposed to do and what they hoped they would do. That is how that looked. They said the linebackers looked absolutely dominant. What I mean by that is they probably aren't busting. They're very consistent in what they're doing, and we all know about the defensive front line, the defensive line, as something to keep an eye on. That defense is going to take Ole Miss as far as that defense can. As the offense gets a little bit better, and they should get better week by week, the worst that Austin Simmons is going to play is against the Georgia State Panthers. That's the way this always works when you bring in a new quarterback. The best that he'll play this season is probably against Mississippi State. The more reps, the more snaps he gets, the better he's going to look. Now, everybody is convinced that Austin Simmons is going to look like Jaxson Dart did in 2022. I am not so sure about that. And the reason I'm not sure about that is the fact that Austin Simmons has been in the system. This is his third year. Jaxson Dart was in the system for like 4 months before he was the starting quarterback. Austin Simmons might have a little bit of a leg up. So the floor of season one is actually a little higher than what Jaxson Dart's was in 2022. Jaxson, if everybody remembers, was not particularly good in that first season. Just got masked a little bit by Quinshon Judkins and Zach Evans. Now, Jaxson got really good in 2023 and just elite, best quarterback in the country in 2024. But 2022 looked a little bit different. And a lot of people think that Austin Simmons is going to go down that same track. I don't believe so. At the scrimmage, like we talked about, Kewan Lacy was running with the ones, and at tight end, Trace Bruckler and Daquan Wright are out there as well. Caleb Odom got a little bit rolled up on about a week or so ago. We'll see how that looks whenever he comes back. And Luke Haas, he is supposed to be back, hopefully hopefully, by LSU. The mock game provided a lot of answers in positions other than the offensive line. And we're going to talk about the offensive line the whole next segment because we have an idea now, thanks to Chuck Rounsaville and rebelgrove.com. I think that's the website, that to where we know the first five on the offensive line and we know some of the backups. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But the main thing to know about this mock game, for those that don't know, and they might have been expecting a real scrimmage, this is a game that you can't really take away pluses and minuses of performance. It's a long way. I've described this as being about everything besides the football on the game day. They're going to go out there and figure out what their stretching lines are going to look at, the pregame routine, where they have to be, the way it looks, where the wide receivers will be in the pregame, all of that stuff. Then during the game, it's the structure of the assistant coach calling down to the head coach or the coordinator calling down to whoever is making the signal on a play, and the operation of that and the offensive and defensive coordinator. Substitutions for the special teams units, substitutions for if a player goes down to pay attention, where the defensive line and the defensive players and all that are on the sideline, how to do halftime, what it looks like. In the pregame, Ole Miss is going to start off in the Manning Center. At halftime, they'll be in the halftime locker room. See, there's actually a lot of complex questions to get ready because you have, 15 minutes at halftime? So all of that going on, that is the main portion of this. But part of this is since it is a true dress rehearsal, you can get an idea of starters at certain positions. You can get an idea for the first time this season what the depth chart might look like. And on the offensive line, you've got 5 players that are completely locking things down. We'll talk about that next segment. But linebackers, Taj Chambers, Jaden Yates, Andrew Jones, TJ Daugherty, Tyler Banks playing at the linebacker position. You get an idea what's up. And you have TJ Daugherty and Taj Chambers kind of running with the ones right now, with a real close thing of Tyler Banks coming over with a Jaden Yates. Linebackers apparently look really good. We talked last week about Jalen Braxton moving back to corner, and now that's kind of situated. The corner position on the field actually went from viewing it as a potential weakness to as a potential strength. You got a freshman all-SEC player that's running backup cornerback right now behind Antonio Kite. You have Ricky Fletcher and Chris Graves absolutely battling on the other side of the field. They're doing really well. And they feel good enough about the safety room and the players coming back earlier than they expected. Looking at you, TJ Banks, that's absolutely amazing. But if he comes through and is starting against the Georgia State Panthers, that's something to pay attention to. And Nick Call holding down the back end of that defense, that is a pretty good hint. That is a pretty good clue that they feel really good about what's going on, because Jalen Braxton is a real athlete. He has NFL level skills. He's somebody that they probably thought about, hey, we'll move him over there and see what's up. We did a show a couple of weeks ago about how this will be the most positionally versatile team in the one platoon era for Ole Miss. Jalen Braxton is going to play some safety, whether it's the slot corner safety or he's going to play strong safety or free safety. They're going to change that around. They're doing the same thing with Dante Core, moving him around. Linebackers move around. Suntarine Perkins is going to play stand-up linebacker, a true 4-3 will, a rush end, and what would be a way to hybrid him at linebacker and safety. They're going to move Suntarine Perkins all over the field. Cam Franklin playing out at end, playing inside at tackle. He is somebody that when they play a 3-man front line, when they get into an odd front, Cam Franklin moving inside and Deshaun Womack moving inside, you've got the personnel to go straight 3-4 defense with the outside backers being Suntarine Perkins and Prince Will Amon Mielen. You can essentially do a 5-man front that way. This defense has a chance to be really, really versatile. And that is something we all need to keep an eye on, honestly, if we're going to be real about it. All right, the Ole Miss offensive line is as close to full strength as it has been in a while. With the key pieces finally back in practice, what could the first 5 look like when they line up against the Georgia State Panthers? We'll break that all down next. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra and Cialis. You've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average about 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options just haven't worked, Rougiette might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. I love that it is completely online. Rougiette connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in that moment. Head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege, all one word, and promo code LockedOnCollege, all one word, for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information. And we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your most favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to LockedOnPodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's Locked On College, LockedOnPodcast.com/survey. You can find the link down in the show notes down below. So thank you for helping out. Likely the main thing we learned in the mock game, the scrimmage that Ole Miss had on Saturday, it was a very everything but the football type scrimmage, but we have a real idea for the first time this fall what the offensive line might look like, and it's honestly looking like what I talked about a week or so ago. Diego Pounds back in the lineup at left tackle. Jayden Williams back in the lineup at right tackle. Patrick Kudis at right guard. PJ Wilkins has the left guard spot lined up at the moment, and Bryson Sanders is snapping the ball. That looks to be your first 5. This came from a source from Chuck Rounsaville down at Rebel Grove talking about what was going on. I honestly forgot to answer or ask about a starting 5 whenever I was doing my quick scrimmage go over because it's a mock game. Again, this is not something that you look at performance. This is something that you look at who. And that offensive line is pretty close to healthy. The only change, if this unit was completely healthy, would likely be Delano Thompson or Townsend at the left guard and PJ Wilkins being the 6th offensive lineman. That is probably the only change from being at completely full strength in your starting unit. You look, you have Connor Hawes, you have Devin Harper that's made a lot of noise this season. Terez Davis, who would be in the mix as well, did not practice on Saturday. Don't know exactly what's going on. The staff does not talk about injuries at all. But between Townsend and Davis, there's still 2 people that are a little bit down, but only one person is down on the starting lineup. Again, I'll say it. Diego Pounds at left tackle. Diego Pounds at left tackle, PJ Wilkins at left guard, Bryson Sanders at center, Patrick Kudis at right guard, and of course, Jayden Williams at right tackle. That is your starting lineup likely for the Georgia State Panthers. If they're going to line up in the mock game, they're likely going to do that as well. Now, injuries could happen in practice. That is how all of this went down. Delano Townsend got injured. Caleb Odom got injured. Injuries happen in practice. So on Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever the competitive full contact practice, there's a chance that somebody else could possibly go down. But as it sits right now, if you looked at the beginning of the season, they are about 4 out of the 5 players that you would have guessed starting on the starting lineup for the Georgia State Panthers. That's good. That's big news for the Ole Miss Rebels, because Kentucky is in week 2. Arkansas is in week 3, and you need those offensive linemen to start developing some continuity. It's going to be really interesting to see how that goes. I want to see if Jayden Williams, how he looks on the right side, because it is not a given that an offensive lineman is ambidextrous. There are offensive linemen all the time that can play left side but can't play right side. Whatever the hop, whatever the skip, whatever the steps in pass protection, they just can't do it on both sides. It's just the way it goes. The walk and chew gum thing, that is something that could absolutely happen. I'm assuming Jayden Williams is going to be a really good player for Austin Simmons and protect the blind side. I think Diego Pounds, he played a lot of left tackle a year ago. Ole Miss's strength on the offensive line is the tackle position. If Patrick Kudis, if PJ Wilkins, if Bryson Sanders can hold down the inside of that line and do the things that are necessary, Ole Miss is going to be pretty good. Now, with Terez Davis being out, with right now Delano Townsend being out, the next line of players is likely 2 true freshmen, and Connor Hiles and Devin Harper. They both had really good camps. But anytime that a freshman gets involved, you get a little bit nervous, especially with Townsend getting work, with Harper getting work at the tackle position. It's hard for a true freshman to play tackle. If you look at it and think about it, even Laramie Tunsil, who's the greatest offensive lineman that has ever played at Ole Miss, started out at guard. If you don't believe me, watch the Vandy game in 2013. So that's usually the path. Connor Hiles, who thinks of himself as a tackle, he's starting out at guard. That means Harper's shown a little bit, and he's kind of showed out during the fall camp and the practice setting if he is still sitting out there at tackle, especially with Davis, especially with the tackles that they already have. So we'll see exactly what that looks like for Ole Miss as well. You know, it is in our final segment, one SEC team finds itself on upset alert this week. And we'll also let you know exactly who Rebel fans should be pulling for to help out Ole Miss. We'll dive into all of that right after this. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches, right? For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on the NFL season predictions, whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 even kicks off. This is your moment. It's music to Locked On Ole Miss podcast ear. So take a flyer on the MVP race. Right now, I'm all about Jayden Daniels putting up massive numbers this year for the Washington Commanders. Crown your champion in August. I really like Buffalo. I don't know if it's the hard knocks or not, but I really like that team. Or you can parlay your division winner dark horses. Hello, New Orleans. Hello, Miami. Hello, Las Vegas? Maybe. I don't know. Visit the FanDuel app today and get started planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Who are the SEC teams on upset alert? Who are the teams that you can count on to show out? We are here to talk about the Week 1 college football lines for the SEC and why you should be pretty excited. All 16 teams are playing in Week 1, so we got 2 sheets of 8 games apiece coming out. We got TV lineups and all of that, so you can plan your Saturday or earlier, as you might see. All this is done in order. These are the Week 1 college football lines and who everybody has. Central Arkansas is at Missouri. Missouri's a 36.5-point favorite. The game is Thursday night at 7:30 Eastern on the SEC network. That actually kicks off SEC football. Central Arkansas at Missouri. Listen, be the first Bo Pribula chance to see it, see what they have at running back. This is a Missouri team that has won 10 games multiple times under Eli Jurinkowicz, and all of a sudden they're not ranked. They're predicted to win 7 games during the season. I'm curious of what the Missouri Tigers might look like moving forward. On Friday night, you have the Auburn Tigers being a 2.5-point road favorite at the Baylor Bears. That game is Friday night at 8 o'clock Eastern on Fox. And listen, Jackson Arnold, really good quarterback. I saw him at the Under Armour All-American game. You saw some flashes of him on the field. Oklahoma was a historic bad offense a year ago because of all of the injuries. Auburn is been a dumpster fire over the course of the last 3 or 4 months. You hear weird stuff about claiming weird national titles and all of the stuff that's not football related. You're going to have 3 offensive coordinators calling plays. You're going to play all 3 quarterbacks. This is what you need to know about this game. Auburn is walking into an absolute cauldron going to play a road game at Baylor. And this is a good Baylor team. Sawyer Robertson is there. That's the school where Michael Trigg ended up, for Ole Miss fans that want to remember that name. Baylor is a really good team, and Dave Loranda, he is a defensive stalwart. But again, that's 8 o'clock Friday night on Fox. That's the game that I genuinely think Auburn is on upset alert for. Auburn might come out and absolutely blow them out. Their roster is fantastic. They have so many good players on that roster. I think that Auburn is walking into an absolute cauldron. McLean Stadium in Waco is going to be absolutely rocking for the chance of a Big 12 team to take down an SEC team. So we'll see exactly what that looks like. Mississippi State is 11.5 road favorites at the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. The game is at noon on Saturday on ESPN. Listen, this is a weird game. You can't really say that you know exactly how this is going to go because there's a lot of stuff at play. First of all, the game's at the Rock and Southern Miss. M.M. Roberts is going to be rocking in that game. Charles Huff came from Marshall to Southern Miss, the team that won the Sun Belt Conference a year ago. He left that job and went to the team that finished essentially last in the Sun Belt Conference a year ago and brought like 30 players with him, including the preseason Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year. So this game, theoretically, Southern Miss has the talent to beat Mississippi State. I don't know if Southern Miss will be there yet. Remember, after Ed Orgeron left Ole Miss, it took a little bit to get the 2008 team going. You have to change the culture. It takes a little bit to make those changes necessary. Southern might need some time to be as good as they're going to be. And Mississippi State, honestly, if we're going to be real about it, even though they're an 11.5-point favorite, they might be catching the Golden Eagles at the right time in this game. Syracuse is at Tennessee, or is versus Tennessee, is in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Friday at noon. Games on ABC. Tennessee's a 13.5-point favorite. First chance to see Joey Aguilar. First chance to see a revamped Tennessee defense. First chance to see what the Syracuse offense is going to look like. I think Angelo, the quarterback that played for Notre Dame in the playoffs last year, he transferred to Syracuse, and he's a pretty good player. So we'll see exactly what that looks like. Tennessee's a 13.5-point favorite in that game. I don't think there's an upset alert happening there. Texas at Ohio State. Ohio State is a 2.5-point favorite over the number one team in the country. It's on Fox at 12 o'clock Eastern Saturday. Listen, everybody has heard me talk about Texas over the better part of the last year. It's going to be a hard row to hoe for the Longhorns in that game. Arch Manning, I'm not a huge fan of. I think Texas is on 8-4 watch. And it starts if they lose that Ohio State game. Toledo at Kentucky. Kentucky's a 7.5-point favorite. The Rockets beat down the Mississippi State Bulldogs a year ago, and this line has pretty consistently been dropping down for the Kentucky Wildcats. So we'll see how it goes for Jason Candle and those guys. Marshall is at Georgia. Georgia's a 39.5-point favorite. Marshall's whole team transferred to Southern Miss. We already talked about that. Should win fairly easily. Alabama is favored by 13.5 on the road at Florida State. That's another stadium that's going to be an absolute cauldron. I do not know if Florida State's good enough, but I do think the Seminoles will be better than they were a year ago. Alabama A&M's at Arkansas. It's 4:15 Eastern on the SEC Network. And check out what the Arkansas offense looks like. Illinois State is at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's favored by 35.5. Another game, it's on SEC Network Plus at 6 o'clock Eastern. UTSA is at Texas A&M. A&M is a 22.5-point favorite. Charleston Southern is at Vandy. Vandy is a 36.5-point favorite. And good for Vandy being a 36.5-point favorite over anybody. There's been years where they wouldn't be favored that high over air. LIU is at Florida. There's no line on that game. 7 o'clock Eastern, SEC Network Plus. Another big game. The LSU Tigers are at the Clemson Tigers. Clemson's favored by 4.5, and that line is pretty consistently moving. The game is at 7:30 Eastern on ABC. Pretty good opportunity to split view if we're going to be honest about it, so we'll see how that looks. Georgia State is at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a 38.5-point favorite. The game is at 7:45 on the SEC Network, and we close out on Sunday. The Virginia Tech Hokies are playing the South Carolina Gamecocks. South Carolina is favored by 7.5. Extremely full weekend, 16 games on the slate. And if you get off to a good start, playoff is in your future. I think Auburn is the biggest upset possibility on this list. I think South Carolina is second. And distant third is the Alabama Crimson Tide. When you look at Clemson and Ohio State, those are favorites, so it wouldn't be upsets if they won the game. But in the end, Ole Miss fans want LSU to lose, they want Texas to lose, and they want Auburn to lose. They want those train wrecks to start as soon as possible. So today on Trivia, we are continuing to talk about season openers, and this year it's from 1963. In 1963, Ole Miss opened the season with the Memphis State Tigers, as it has a lot of the time, but it is one of two ties that season for Johnny Vaught in his last SEC champion year at Ole Miss. What was the final score of that game versus Memphis State in the season opener? What was the final score there? And a bonus question, who was the other tie that year for the Ole Miss Rebels? Put your answer down in the comment section below. We will put the answer on socials a little bit later on today. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the front door of Ole Miss. Check Google and search Ole Miss Podcast and see how much we come up. We're 80% of that page. So don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the channel, and comment on the channel. It helps the show. It is completely free. Your support means the world to us. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to college football's landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Tomorrow, we'll be talking press conference. Hotty toddy, everybody. Remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.